Hello, this is Paul with the CoCreative Intimacy Podcast. I have a guest speaker today, Brett. Brett, would you like to tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. For the previous 10 years, I've been a pastor. Recently have stepped out of that and am currently a writer and a part-time substitute teacher. I'm married for 9 years now with 2 kids, a 6 and a 4-year-old, and I also coach high school football, which I really enjoy.
I learned a lot about you with your pastoral work and your writing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me something about your education in the past.
Yeah, I went to college or university, Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Illinois. There, I graduated magna cum laude with a degree in bachelor's in Christian ministry.
Oh, wow. What were your grades like in high school?
I did really well in high school. I didn't have to try super hard, but yeah, mostly A's and B's, pretty much straight across the board, high honor roll almost every year.
Okay, so I want to get a sense of like how many A's, how many B's?
I would say if I had, let's say, 8 classes, it would probably be 7 A's, 1 B, or 6 and 2.
And were you happy to get the B because you knew that you were a great student, or did the B really bother you?
Yeah, no, it didn't bother me per se, because usually my B's were in like honors classes, so I was okay with that. Yeah, no, it wasn't a problem.
In your college, what was your major?
It started out as preaching, pastoral ministry, and then it changed into Christian ministry.
Got it. Which means like counseling and that kind of thing.
Yep, basically.
Tell me a little bit about your spouse and her personality. Is she more like a heart-based, when lots of emotion, or is she more, or just tell me what she's like?
Yeah, she's a very reserved person. She likes to keep to herself with people she doesn't trust. And outwardly, she's not very emotional. Like, I've been with her for 15 years, and I'm very close with my like intermediate family, like my parents. And my parents have never even seen her cry. And so they're around her quite a bit. And I see her cry, like one-on-one or with people she's around a lot and really trust. She opens up, but she's very reserved, but also a very passionate person. Like, she loves things deeply and cares about people real deeply.
Right. So she's comfortable and opens up to you.
Mm-hmm, correct. Yeah, and a few other choice people.
So would you say then you're the more emotional one of the two?
I would say publicly, yes, but privately, no. Publicly, and yeah, when we're around other people, I'm definitely more emotional, but personally, she's the more emotional one.
Would you say that you're an easygoing person?
Yeah, I think I'm very easygoing. I can let a lot slide off my back. I can see that like as in my jobs as a high school football coach, or even with a kid like we let come live with our house. Like, he did a lot of things to really hurt our family, but I was able just to kind of let it go and slide, and it didn't affect me too personally.
When you're working with people pastorally, do you find that it's easy or difficult to talk with people that have different views than your own?
Yeah, no, I don't find it difficult to talk about it for sure. I'm pretty open to having conversations, where I think a lot of people, or our culture says, like, if you disagree with someone, shut down and don't talk. But no, I'm super open to having conversations with people who disagree with me. However, I do believe that there's closed hand theology, things we can't disagree on, and then open hand theology as a Christian. Those are things we can disagree on. But I'm open to having any conversation.
Okay, let's open it up. Let's look at the general public. Let's say, and I don't need to know anything about your personal political affiliation or anything, but would you be able to talk to maybe a Democrat for 5 minutes who's really passionate about their views, and then turn around and talk to a Republican for 5 minutes who's really passionate about their views, and sit down and have lunch with them? Or would that be something that you would probably never do?
No, that would be totally fine. Actually, my last church, there was the church I pastored for 10 years. There were multiple different types of political views, and I'm able to talk to anyone about anything. So yeah, no, that would not bother me at all.
Okay, and then let's say you sat down with this Democrat person and the Republican person, and you had lunch, and you end up being friends with both of them. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. I have friends from all different walks of life, so yeah, no, that would not be a problem at all.
Would you say that deep in your core you have some anxiety about doing things or about security, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do have a little bit of social anxiety. Often, sometimes I'll walk away from a conversation like wondering, oh, what did this person think about what I said? So yeah, I definitely have a little bit of anxiety. Not an overwhelming a lot, but enough to where I think I have some.
So let's see. Let's kind of broaden this up a bit. Would you say your anxiety has to do with safety? Like, let's say, like you've got children. Would you be concerned if they rode their bicycle without a helmet? Or are you very much a fanatic on make sure you have that helmet on?
Yeah, no, I'm not a big safety. I don't have a lot of anxiety when it comes to safety. So no.
Okay. Do you like to read?
Sometimes I like to read the Bible and I like to read books that captivate me. But I'll read maybe 2 or 3 books a year. That's about it.
Okay. And internet reading counts nowadays?
Yeah. I read a lot of articles and things of that nature as a writer. Like I'm always reading other people's work.
So you notice how there's 3 sets of 3 on this diagram.
Mm-hmm.
8, 9, and 1 are blue. 2, 3, and 4 are red. And 5, 6, and 7 are green.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And each of them has a word in its triad. And the more than one word, but the big word is a body part. The top triad has gut. The next triad has heart. And then 5, 6, 7 has head. Mm-hmm. And so what this means is that the people in the heart triad, their heart is well developed. And all human beings, doesn't matter who you are, has a heart and a head and a gut. So we all have them. It's a question of how are they stacked? Which one do we give more preference to? And so the head people, so you notice there's another word there in faint letters, and that is an emotion. So the head triad has the word anxiety, mm-hmm. and the gut triad has the word anger, and the heart triad has the word shame. So these words, these emotions are neutral. They're not good. They're not bad. They're completely neutral. Even the word anger, for example, anger is an appropriate emotion. It's what you do with it that kind of gets anger a bad rep. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you were to watch an injustice happening over there, it's normal to feel angry. Mm-hmm. Even Jesus was angry in the temple, right? Mm-hmm. So which of those 3 triads would you say you have the underlying emotion? Do you have anger percolating here and there, or do you have more shame or fear?
That is tough. So I see at different points in my life feeling all those.
It's okay to say that you have more than one.
Yeah, I would say out of the 3, it would be more the shame and anger. I don't know which one would be the baseline more. I'd probably say shame.
Do you do any art?
No, I'm outside of writing, if that's considered art, but no, not like drawing or painting or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Tell me what some of your hobbies are.
I like football a lot, so I watch a lot of football. I hang out with my kids. If I had time for hobbies, I would do things like video games or like playing sports. I love to like go out and play basketball. I run and work out quite a bit, so I guess that's kind of a hobby. I work out 3 to 5 days a week.
What kind of activities did you do in high school other than going to classes?
Yeah, I played sports, so I've played football for a long time. I also did FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and outside of that, just hung out with friends.
Okay. Do you have a sense of doing things correctly? Do you have a sense of like when you talk to somebody, you were wondering, oh my gosh, did I say the right thing?
Yes.
Do you have a sense of?
Yes, for sure. And my parents have nicknamed me by the book Brett because I like to do things like very specifically.
So do you have siblings?
I do. Yep. I have 2 sisters.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm the oldest.
So were you seen as the child that did everything right? The good child, really tried to please mom and dad?
Yeah. I would say so for the good bulk of my childhood years. Yeah.
Okay. whenever you do something, do you think, you know what, I could have done that a little bit better?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I always want to figure out how to do something a little better. Yeah.
And are you relaxed about it, or are you like, yeah, I really, is it something very important to make sure that you improve whatever you did?
Yeah, I don't think that it comes from a plate. Yeah, I don't think that like I'm like very anxious about it. I just think like I want to try to get better, and I'm not like beating myself over the head over not doing it the way that I think would have been better.
Okay. Brett, as we were discussing,
Mhm.
you can take a test on the Enneagram, but it may not get your type correct.
Yep.
And the reason is because the more developed you are as a person, the more you're going to exhibit the qualities of multiple types.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. So if a test doesn't get you correct, it's actually a compliment.
Yeah.
Because you've grown. So we're kind of in this box, but then as we grow, we learn to be comfortable with the other types.
Yeah.
So I'm having a hard time here because you've exhibited some qualities of many of the types.
Yeah.
And usually when you exhibit many types, it makes me think of Peacemaker. Does the title Peacemaker resonate with you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So when I do a workshop on the Enneagram, within a couple hours, I start asking people, okay, what type do you think you might be?
Mm-hmm.
And most people say, okay, within 20 minutes, maybe an hour, they figure that they're this type or this type or this type. But there's usually in a crowd of like, say, 20 people, there's usually one or two who is not sure. Because they say, you know what? This is really hard to decide because I've got some 7, I've got some 8, I've got some 5. And those people, when I work with somebody, even like now when I'm working with you,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I cannot tell you what your type is.
Yeah.
Because the Enneagram is a very personal journey.
Yeah.
I can tell you as a professional what my observations are.
Uh-huh.
And then it's up to you to go home and figure out and read up about it and resonate and see what you think works for you.
Yep.
So even when you take a test, I tell people, don't think that that's your type. Use that as a guidepost and go home and read up on it and decide and confirm. You need to really confirm because some people, as I said, about 30, 35, 40% will say, you know what, this has been a great experience for me to think that I was this type, but I've discovered in the journey that I'm actually another type. So in your pastoral work, do you think you have a natural gift of empathy?
Yes, I think I do. The only areas I don't are like probably with my wife and kids. Like that's the hardest place. But with outside people, like especially during pastoral work, I believe that I can feel deeply for other people and have empathy for them.
Would you say, so you grew up Christian, I'm assuming?
Well, no, I didn't become a Christian until later in high school. So it was age 16.
Okay, so let's talk about before age 16. Did you guys go to church? Tell me what was happening.
Yeah, we didn't really go to church. Like there was like a 6-month period when I was younger, like in like grade school, where we went, and then I'd like go to VBSs, and my parents would often read the Bible with me. But no, we'd never been a part of a church until around that age when I was 16.
So prior to 16, when you more officially became
Mm-hmm.
a Christian, would you say that you were a spiritual person? Would you say that you had this natural sense of how we're all connected in the world together?
Yeah, I had a sense of God for sure. I guess a spiritual person would be a way to describe it. I didn't know Jesus, but yeah, no, I had always had a desire to understand who God was. I just didn't know who he was at the time.
Would you say that now you have a natural spirituality sense, even apart from your Christianity, that I'm sure is nurtured by your Christianity, that the world, people from all countries, all walks of life, all religions, that we're connected? How does that thought resonate with you?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it like that. Yeah, I don't think that resonates. That thought resonates with me.
Okay, got it. Would you say that you're a fun person?
I would say there's times when I'm fun, and I think that I'm a funny person. I think I make people laugh. I'm not necessarily the person who's going to go out and just be the life of the party, though.
Yeah. So, Brett, I'm going to say that I'm a little bit miffed in that I'm not sure what your type is.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of all around the board a bit. which again is nothing bad. It actually is a compliment.
Yep.
Would you like to reveal what your type is?
Sure. Well, before I say that, you are not the first person to say that to me. Multiple people have. Even in college, people would always be like, Brett, you're just such a mystery. You are not alone in that. Even my pastor now, he just doesn't quite know where to put me. However, on my test, I actually tied for 2. I tied for 6 and 9. And then after listening to a couple songs to try to help me figure out and identify which one specifically, I came up with Peacemaker.
Let's try to work with that some more. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, when I started talking to you, I didn't know. And I was asking questions to try to figure things out. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, I kind of felt you were on the triangle of 3, 6, and 9. Mm-hmm. So 3, 6, and 9 share qualities with each other. Mm-hmm. If you look at 9, the top word is the title. So Peacemaker. Mm-hmm. And the next 2 words are also titles, Referee and Dreamer. And those have to do with whether you lean a bit to the 8 or to the 1, mm-hmm. which are the adjacent types. Mm-hmm. And those are sometimes called the wings. On 6, it's called the loyalist, the buddy, the defender. The 4th word in italics is the vice. So we all have something that we're challenged with. So 9 is slothful, which means like laziness. It's not a physical laziness. It's more of an energetic laziness. Mm-hmm. So a common thing with the type 9 is they work in spurts. So they say, you know what, I'm going to do this and take this class and read that book and do this and this and this. But then they don't do it. They kind of sit on their butt. They're not very motivated. And all of a sudden, something happens in life and boom, it's like they get whacked, mm-hmm. In their being. And all of a sudden they wake up and then they like accomplish boom, 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 boom. And then they do all of those things. Mm-hmm. But then they might take another break. So for another 6 months, sometimes it even goes to a year or more. They kind of they glide. And that's the laziness that it's talking about. Does any of that resonate with you?
No, not really. If I do something I usually like, I'm pretty motivated to do it. I don't really sit back. I just jump right in and get stuff done.
Let's talk about number 6. So 6 is called a loyalist. Mm-hmm. They have friends. They're very, very loyal. Their friends are going to be their friends for life.
Yep.
They like to do things a certain way. And you know what? You're mentioning that your parents noticed that you were the what was the expression you used?
Yeah, by the book, Brett.
So 6s have a fascination with rules. Mm-hmm. They enjoy rules because they see that rules make them safe. Yep. For example, driving the speed limit. I made a reference to putting on your bike helmet for your kids. Mm-hmm. They might go into a movie theater, and the first thing they do is they look for the exit signs, just in case there's an emergency happening. They need to know how to leave. Yeah. A lot of 6s enjoy being policemen or firemen because it has to fire policemen. When they pull you over, what do they say for speeding? They say, sir, I just wanted you to be safe. Yep. So policemen at the core are motivated to safety, and a lot of firemen actually are 6s. Now, any type, I want to say, could be a policeman or a fireman, mm-hmm. but there's just a higher concentration of these types within this vocation. Yeah. So 6s have anxiety. They kind of have it all the time, but nobody necessarily knows this. Other people can't tell, but they can tell. So It may even be making decisions like, should I eat Italian? Should I eat Chinese, Italian, Chinese, Italian? Okay, let's go Italian. Or it could be like, what am I going to wear today? Going to wear this shirt, this shirt, this shirt, and then they just pick one. Do you have that kind of issue?
Yes, a lot of what you just said resonated with me, all that. And then even like we're trying to decide where to go on a trip in the next couple of weeks after football gets over. And I'm like, should I do this one or that one? And it caused this internal struggle. I do really like rules a lot. And like, for example, I just don't speed because I know that I shouldn't speed. Even if I'm running late, I will not go over the speed limit more than like 1 or 2 miles. And so, that really resonated with me.
So let's say you're driving your car with a group of people. You got 5 or 6 people in your car, and you're just like, okay, everybody, put your seatbelt on, and then you're like, okay, wait a minute, okay, I'm not driving, and I'm not starting the engine until the seatbelt. Okay, you got it on. Okay, thank you. Now you start up. Would you ever have that kind of an energy?
Yes, I definitely would. I definitely have in the past.
Okay. So let's talk some more about sixes. So
Mm-hmm.
back to the diagram. The fourth word, the vice, is fearful.
Mm-hmm.
Fearful. So I want to say that anxiety is, as we were saying earlier, is a neutral emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're walking by the Grand Canyon and you're right at the edge and you're with your grandma and you're walking on the canyon side and you're walking really close.
Mm-hmm.
And you're now all of a sudden your grandma trips a bit and she grabs onto you and you feel some anxiety because, wow, I could have dropped off into the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's an example of normal, healthy anxiety.
Yep.
That's anxiety that's proper. It's your body telling you, be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this anxiety could go the other way. For example, let's say you were 10 years old and you see somebody get hit by a bus, a yellow bus, and it was your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So years later in your life, every time you see a yellow bus, you could feel anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, this is a case where through therapy, through some inner work, you could get to the root of this and try to heal that trauma. But that's an example of anxiety, which is kind of there, but it doesn't really help you.
Mm-hmm.
So sixes are wired. They have a natural radar for safety where they, in a situation, like let's say they're walking through a dark alley at night, they're going to do the right things to keep themselves and their party safe.
Mm-hmm.
So they may not walk through that dark alley. They might say, you know what, we're not going to do this, or we need to go over there, or I'll do that if I have a headlamp or something,
Mm-hmm.
or is any of this resonating with you?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I guess in my head when talking about anxiety, I have never looked at it from the positive or the neutral aspect, and I totally believe like C.S. Lewis has a quote talking about the piano, and he's like, "There's no wrong notes on the piano. It's just when you play the notes at the wrong time, or no wrong keys, just when you play the wrong key at the wrong time." So I totally believe like a lot of emotions are neutral. I've just always seen anxiety as a negative thing. But yeah, no, I'm definitely the one who tries to keep people safe. I think about like when I enter the theater. Yeah, I'm trying to find the fire exits. Just trying to keep a look at my surroundings. When we go into a restaurant, I'll sit in a certain seat where I can see the whole restaurant. And my wife knows this by now, so she knows which seat I go to and which seat she goes to, and we sit down. So yeah, definitely, all resonates.
So you don't like the seat where you're facing the wall. You want to sit by the wall facing the restaurant.
Yep, so I can see what's going on, and in case anything happens, I can be aware. Yeah, and then with that too, you had mentioned earlier, like the top word there is loyalist. When I'm like in a job interview or when I'm talking about like my most positive characteristic, that's usually the thing that I point to is loyalty. I stuck like with a small church for 10 years, even though I've had multiple opportunities to go pastor mega churches. And like I've stuck with a football team right now that is like 0-9, and we haven't won a game in 4 years, but they're my people, so I stick around even though I've had opportunities to coach elsewhere. So yeah, I've definitely, if I would describe like one positive characteristic, it would be loyal.
So when you're doing group activities, would you say you're very much a team player?
Yes. Yep. I'd say so.
In fact, so sixes are known to be like the leaven of the group. They actually help the group. Sometimes somebody's not so much a team player, but they put that team player energy out there, and it helps everybody. They're very much into let's all do this together.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's look at those lines. So the lines for number 6 go to the 9 and the 3. Mm-hmm. So if you go with the arrow, it's considered stress. And if you go against the arrow, it's considered growth. Mm-hmm. So think of it as it's easy to go with the arrow, easy to stress, harder to go against the arrow, harder to grow.
Yeah.
So this means that at type 6, when you're stressed out, you kind of take on the qualities of the type 3, which means that they get stuff done. They energize everybody. They wake up earlier, perhaps, and get all these things done before 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. They're very efficient, and they're good with their image. They're very concerned about their image, to dress correctly, say the right things in order to get along with people. do you have any of that energy in you when you're stressed out?
Yeah, I would say I like to get stuff done. Physically, like my physical appearance, though, like I don't worry as much about that. Like I don't really care physically what people think. But yeah, no, when I feel stressed, I like to do and get stuff done.
Okay. And of course, you're a male in a society where that's an appropriate value regarding your dress. So let's look at the other direction, the growth path to the 9. So do you ever find yourself where, so the 6 again has these insecurities that are kind of built in, which is another word for anxiety. And so when you're in your healthy place, those anxieties come to rest, and you're able to talk to all these people, and you're just able to rest and feel, and it's a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. I would say that's something that I've been learning, that I've been working on, especially over the past couple of years. I've never really been a rester. I've always been a doer, and sometimes it works out really well for me. But a lot of times, like I don't rest in the midst of what stuff needs to get done. I'm always trying to figure out how to fix everything. But yeah, no, that totally makes sense. It's my pastor actually, he's pointed this out to me. He talks to me about how, like, pastor at the church I'm part of now, Brett, you're always a doer, and sometimes you need to be a rester in those moments when you feel stress.
Interesting. So he actually said that, huh?
Yep. Oh, yeah, 100%.
So let's look at the next word in the stack of words. The 5th word is in black italics. So that word says deviance, and that's what 6s avoid. So if we've done it in this way, we've got a list of directions on how to do something in the group. If this works all the time, why are we going to change it? It works great. So 6s have a hard time sometimes with changing the plan and doing something in a completely new way, because it's untested, and it's going to bring with it some question of whether it's a secure, good method. So 6s love rules because for them the rules keep them safe.
Yep.
So all of the types in the anxiety triad, which would be 5, 6, and 7, struggle with anxiety. So 5s, they address anxiety by learning, by reading, by observing the world. The more they understand the world, the more peaceful they feel. 7s address anxiety by avoiding difficult conversations. They avoid emotional pain, and they instead will do something fun. That's the natural instinct of the 7. And the 6 addresses their anxiety by following the rules. This is a sure, tested method. Yeah. So in the careers of, have you heard of like quality engineering?
Yes, I'm not super familiar what it is, but yes, I've heard.
So there's quality testing, quality engineering. Those people are hired to test something, find the flaws. What's wrong with this product? And it's a natural 6 energy. They're good at finding the flaws.
Yep. Has
anybody ever accused you of maybe being a bit of a pessimist, where you're always finding what's going to go wrong with our plan, on our vacation or whatever? Does that ever happen?
Yes, for sure. And I think I am naturally good at finding like the broken areas in situations or in plans. Yes. Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm starting to feel more and more secure that you are probably a 6 in terms of my observation.
Yeah. And the questions you're asking are making me feel that the same exact way.
So let's talk about that pessimism. So at the worst, you could be pessimistic, but at your best, you're a skeptic. So, and I want to say that part of this journey of the Enneagram is to celebrate who you are, understand the gifts that God has given you to make you Brett.
Yeah.
And so your beautiful skill is you are a skeptic. So, you're the one that's needed in the group to help identify the danger. So even though somebody might say, you're a bit of a pessimist, why can't you just go along with the group and let's just try this? I want you to know that you can still go inside and recognize that God gave you this gift. It's a beautiful gift. So it could go back and forth on not being so healthy to being healthier.
Yeah.
But I want you to feel that this is the beauty of who you are, is that you do have that natural skeptic energy.
Yeah. 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 No, I appreciate that too. Because sometimes it can feel more like a negative quality than a positive quality. So to know that that's how God made me and that's okay, and just don't take it in the wrong direction. That's super helpful.
Yes. Good. I'm glad you like that. So if you look at further on the diagram, it says there's something that's underlined. That's called a need. So sixes have built into them a need to be secure, a need to be certain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next statement is their pride statement. I am trustworthy. Does that all resonate with you?
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Okay, this is good. The other thing for you to keep in mind moving forward is that you have a natural connection to 9 and 3.
Uh-huh.
And so the goal of the Enneagram is not to stay stuck in your type, even though it's kind of our motivational energy that God gave you. But the goal is to constantly try to improve ourselves by understanding the energy of the other types. That's actually a positive quality. So for you, as you go around the circle and learn other energies and grow as a human being, the types that are most easy for you to learn would be 3 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
But also maybe a little bit of 5 and a little bit of 7, because those are adjacent types.
Okay.
So those are going to be the easiest to get a grasp on. You'll find yourself enjoying some of the qualities of those types very easily.
Okay.
I want to talk about another thing about 6s.
Mm-hmm.
6s are the only type that kind of have a subdivision. There's 2 kinds of 6s. There's phobic and counterphobic. The phobic 6s are the type where they have a fear, like let's say flying, and they're never going to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a fear of heights, and they're never going to hike next to the Grand Canyon or climb El Capitan. So they just have these natural fears.
Mm-hmm.
Counterphobic 6s have the same fears, but they say, you know what, I have a fear of heights. And then at some point in their life, they take a class in skydiving, and then they do it 7 times.
Yeah.
So they have a need to hit those areas that they're scared of head on.
Yeah.
Which type do you think you are?
I'd say probably the counterphobic. Yeah, like if I have a fear, I like to try to face it. I have anxiety. For example, like as in a high school, like I was super afraid of talking in front of people, and speech class gave me so much anxiety. But I just took it head on and made a career out of it. So yeah, I like to face my fear and anxiety.
Your major was preaching.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and I was like, I may be afraid to talk to people, but I believe that this is what God wants me to do. So I took it head on.
That's beautiful. I love that, Brett. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, some people feel like as a 6 that you're going to be either phobic or counterphobic. But what I've discovered in my work with people is that, like everything else about the Enneagram, you may grow into the other side.
Yeah.
So some people start off phobic when they're younger and they become more counterphobic when they're older,
Mm-hmm.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
So again, you have access to both sides.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you another question. Another quality about 6s, especially counterphobic 6s, is they can sometimes really push back hard. Like they can get into a big argument and like almost, and it doesn't have to be bad. It could be a good thing, but they're going to attack. They're going to be combative in a certain situation. But when they do that, it's usually short-lived, and then they kind of go back to their normal self. Does that ever happen?
Yep. Just happened this past football game. I had a conflict with one of the coaches, and I just went after it. I was like, hey, this is the problem we're having. And then like we talked through it and had the conversation. And then right afterwards, like we were cool. Well, he wasn't cool. I was cool with him. And then he was a little upset. And we ended up having to have a follow-up conversation yesterday. But yeah, no, I can be intense about something in a conversation and then minutes later be okay with everything going on around me.
That's another great example that you definitely have a lot of 6 qualities.
Yeah.
So when you're working with the Enneagram with somebody else who doesn't know your type, sometimes you might be mistyped as a type 8. Has that ever happened?
No one's ever said that to me. I'd have to have a better understanding of what a type 8 is.
The title of type 8 is the challenger. So they have no problem with telling somebody that they disagree with them or that the boundaries are not appropriate. So especially if you're a parent and there's a coach with your kid, if something is not happening right, they will not think about it for several days, but they'll go right up and address this. They meet challenges right on. Yeah. That's a type 8.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anyone ever saying that to me. It doesn't mean they haven't.
So if you were in that space of being willing to challenge all the time, that's 8. So what this means is that a counterphobic 6 sometimes looks like an 8. They have the same kinds of behavior.
Yeah.
The way you determine if you're really an 8 or a 6 is to see how long does it last and what's the core issue.
Yeah.
8s, their core issue is they don't want to be controlled.
Yeah.
And with 6s, the core issue is they want themselves and everybody else to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I feel some comfort in like not that I like to be controlled, but when I'm in an environment where I am controlled, I'm okay. I'm okay with that if I'm comfortable. And so I don't think I need control all the time.
Yes, and I would say that you probably like leadership as long as it's good leadership.
Yep, exactly.
Here we have Andy Rooney from 60 Minutes from a while back. He was a funny guy. He never smiled, but everybody loved the guy. He had a big heart.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway. So the two of the late night TV shows from a while back, David Letterman and Jay Leno. Do you remember either of those?
Oh yeah, I know both of them.
So their humor is based on what can go wrong. So their 6s are naturally witty. They have a quirky kind of sense of humor. A lot of people will say that your humor is a little quirky, but it's a beautiful humor. They can oftentimes just bring in a new insight to a conversation with a joke in a fun way.
Yeah.
Oscar Romero was this Catholic archbishop from El Salvador who was a by the book guy, but then the Vatican sent him down there to help with the politics, and because he was a by the book guy.
Yeah.
And because some of the ministers were getting involved in politics, and Rome thought that was inappropriate, but he went down there, and after he saw people getting killed, this is in the 1970s with the Sandinistas, and then he changed, and he saw it, and he started really preaching God's word, and that it was okay to be involved in the politics because that was necessary to bring down the corruption.
Yeah.
Peter the Apostle, luckily a type 6. Rosa Parks, when she said, "I will not go to the back of the bus," that was an example of her normally being very peaceable and going along, but all of a sudden, boom, I'm not going to accept this.
Yeah.
You might enjoy watching Along Came Polly because Ben Stiller is definitely a classic 6.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, funny movie. Those were all healthy 6s. Let's look at some average 6s. So I put Richard Nixon in there. So he was the one, paranoid about everything. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Do you feel, what is your feeling now after this?
Super helpful. I've always been a hard guy to define, trying to, like I said, in college, like people always said, oh, right, we just don't know who you are. And so to kind of get a line and get some questioning that helps me understand myself was super helpful. I definitely say after that, I didn't know if I was a 6 or a 9. And I think definitely at this point, I definitely lean more towards 6.
And I think the reason why people get that read on you is because, number one, you go on that triangle between 3, 6, and 9.
Yeah.
So each of the points of that triangle are in a different triad.
Yeah.
So you've got access to that anger energy, you've got access to that heart energy, and you also have access to that fear energy.
Yeah.
The head energy. And I'm guessing that there's a lot going on in your head. Your head is active constantly.
Yep, 100%. Yep, I never stop thinking.
Yeah. The other reason that you're kind of all across the board is because you're a counterphobic 6. So you go kind of between resting and jumping in, resting and jumping in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. My pastor talking to me yesterday, and he's like, we starting a benevolence team. He says we need to find someone who's by the book but also has heart to make like decisions like, oh, who do we give money to? He said you were the first person I thought of. So yeah, I feel like I bounce so much between different areas.
You're the guy. Brett, it has been a fun experience chatting with you on this video. I find you to be a person with remarkable self-knowledge. You thought you might be a 9. I wasn't sure, and we danced around the chart, and we ended up with 6. This dance was necessary to type you precisely because you're a person of great depth and emotional maturity. Brett, thank you for being transparent and sharing so much of yourself. Okay, well, I'm hoping this has been helpful to you to understand the beauty of who you are and how God has made you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much. See ya.